You know, when I was at Harvard, it was in 68 to 71, I was in residence there. And of course, that was right after Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And there was a lot of efforts going on at that time to deal with the issues of African Americans. You know, we were at Harvard, we were talking about revolution and how you change this and change that. Uh, when I was had finished, about to complete my third year, I had worked on a committee that was set up to try to improve diversity at Howard and establish the Du Bois Institute and the Black Studies Department. Well, one of the speakers that came up was Robert Brown. Bob Brown was one of the original founders and the original founder of the Review of Black Political Economy. So he talked to me about coming to work for him. And I said, wow, I'm going to get to work for this great black man who has all these ideas and who's committed to the cause. So I said, yes. Of course, when I went down there and I reported the first day, looking to be mentored and to learn all about how to do economics that's relevant, he told me I was director of research. And so, but anyway, Bob was in the group, this was around 1970, 71. He was in the group that had established the NEA. And the NEA, in the beginning, it was something called the Black Economic Research Center that I was at in Harlem. And we owned and housed the Review of Black Political Economy. And we was basically the meeting place for the early congressional, the caucus of black economists. So I met them from the beginning. And, you know, they were good mentors. They got me involved in making presentations at conferences and that kind of thing. And so I got very involved in the NEA. Worked in it for a long time, served on the board for a long time, was president in the past.
Oh, I've been a part of the NEA since its founding. I was not a part of the group that went and made the plea to AEA for support, but I've been a part of the organization since it was founded.
I got introduced to the NEA by chance. I attended the ASSA conference that was held in Detroit. I think it was in 1970. And as I was going through the hallway there to go to the conference, there was a gentleman seated at a table, and it turned out that his name was Robert Brown. And he was the founder, one of the founders of what became the National Economic Association. It was then called the Caucus of Black Economists. And he is the founding editor of the Review of Black Political Economy. And so I met him, talked to him. He encouraged me to come to the meetings. And at that point, I didn't know of any other, I only knew of one other black economist at that time, Dr. Phyllis Wallace, who was at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But by attending the National Economic Association meetings, I met all of these black economists and became a part of that.
Okay, I was introduced to the NEA by Rhonda Williams, who is one of the legendary members during the 1980s. At that time, I was preparing to go to graduate school. I'd done my undergraduate work at Emeritus College, and I happened to have a conversation with the chair of the Black Studies Department at Amherst, Robert Goodings Williams, and told him about my plans to return and get my Ph.D. At some point and from somewhere. And he said, oh, you should talk to my sister, Rhonda. And I think she's coming up to Boston soon. So I got in touch with Rhonda. We had breakfast together. She gave me a lot of good advice, and among that advice was to get to know the NEA.
So the first time I went to an American Economic Association meeting was during the year before I graduated, because I was on the job market. And so during the course of that meeting, I met black economists who were involved in the National Economic Association. And that's how I started my own participation in the organization.
Well, in the NEA, I basically, as a graduate student, I read some of the articles that were concerned about income inequality and wealth disparities. And that basically was an impact on me because I came from a small community in northeast Louisiana, which is one of the poorest areas in the United States. So I was concerned about income inequality and how to increase wealth in terms of the African American community.
Well, when I was a graduate student at Texas, I heard about the summer program, which was being hosted by Stanford, and I thought it sounded like a really good idea because we had a lot of minority students who were econ majors at Texas, and so I came up with the idea of moving the program to Texas, and surprisingly, everybody there wanted to do it, and so I wrote the proposal to bring it to Texas, and then we went out to Stanford and visited. And as part of the program, we had visitors who would come and talk to the students. And two of the visitors were Willene Johnson and Susan Collins, who were very active in the NEA. And so that's where I heard about it, and I got to know them, and I was really impressed with them.
I got introduced to the NEA through my association with some colleagues, Sam Myers and Sandy Darity. We were at the University of Texas, and we were concerned about opening up the doors, getting more inclusion into the profession, and in particular, the work through the Committee on the Status of Minorities in the Economic Profession run through the AEA.
So I got introduced to the NEA by some longstanding members of the organization, Cecilia Conrad, Sandy Darity, Sam Myers, Bill Spriggs. Those were the first people I met who were members of the NEA. I attended my first American Economic Association conference in 1993, January of 1993. So I've been active with the NEA ever since.
My dissertation advisor, Cecilia Conrad, encouraged us to come to the ASSA meetings before we were on the job market. So that's how I became introduced to the NEA through her, and she also paid my student membership fees.
So I was introduced to the NEA by my mentor, Rhonda Sharpe. I went to the conferences, this annual conference, and she brought me to the NEA reception, and I went to the NEA presidential address, and there I saw a lot of Black economists that I had never been exposed to before. And so I've been coming every year and then learning more and more, developing my network, and a lot of those people have been helping me strive to get to where I'm at now.
I got introduced to the NEA through the mentoring program that at that time it was called the Pipeline Program.
Well, actually I got introduced while I was at Tougaloo undergrad, and I got a chance to go to graduate school at Howard University, and I met professors who were part of the organization who kind of mentored me and took me under the wing to, hey, come to the conferences. So once I became faculty, I wanted to be a part and continue to be a part of those who supported me.
So how did I get involved with the NEA? The graduate advisor at the University of Florida asked if I'd come recruit for him at a summer program they were having, and I had no idea what it was. I agreed to go to it. I went to it and realized that there were all these people of color, Hispanic, Caribbean, Blacks, that did economics. Before that, I had only interacted with maybe two Ph.D. economists as professors, and it opened my eyes, and now it exposed me to learn that there's so many people like me that are in this profession that I didn't know existed before.
Actually, this is going to be my first time of coming to this event. I learned about NEA just yesterday, and I came for this event, and I found it to be an interesting group that's going to be part of my future, and also I would like to continue to be part of the group.